Welcome to Reparenting Daily, your free daily guide for inner child healing and repairing the relationship with yourself. This podcast helps you establish a consistent reparenting routine, and is divided into 3 sections. The first is a daily reading, the second is a discussion of that reading, followed by suggested journal prompts, and the last section is a peaceful binaural beats meditation for closing. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from whenever and wherever you're joining us. I'm so glad that you can join us for this journey of self-expansion. If this is your first time, welcome. As a celebration of completing our first full year of Reparenting Daily episodes, I've opened a free membership tier for the Patreon community so that you can access more resources and join weekly Zoom calls for free. I understand there's a lot going on in the world right now, and I know that many people are really struggling. My hope with this is to encourage others to still pick up the work of reparenting and offer a free community where people can come together and do that. I'd also like to thank all of you who've been along on the journey so far. Just as a reminder, this is a free podcast, but you can support the project by purchasing the Reparenting Daily journal, where you can follow us along all year. This 333-page journal gives you extra insight and resources for each week, and it also provides space for you to keep your notes. Another way to support the podcast is to purchase the Fairy Tales for Reparenting series, volumes 1 through 3. This collection organizes famous and obscure fairy tales from around the world into 3 phases of the hero's journey, beginning, middle, and end. And while you might think that fairy tales are for kids, I'd like to challenge you here. These stories contain profound truths and lessons carried down over millennia that we can use to integrate in our reparenting journey. It's a fun way to connect with your inner child. Each volume contains 10 fairy tales. They include an analysis section to help you dive deeper into the message, as well as journal prompts to reflect on the story's meaning for your own life. Lastly, you can also support the podcast by taking a paid Patreon subscription, purchasing the books on the website, or by donating to Buy Me a Coffee. You can find all this information on the supporter section of the website. And so, with these announcements out of the way, let's dive into today's practice. Today, we're going to be listening to a portion of a TED Talk by Andrea Pennington, and it's entitled, My Journey to Self-Love. Just as a reminder, we're in February, and the theme for this month is self-compassion and self-kindness. We're in week 3, and the theme for this week is cultivating inner warmth and self-acceptance. Now, I've selected this TED Talk because it's a really great one. It has millions of views, so it's really good if you go ahead and check it out. I will put the link in the show notes, as always. We'll listen to a portion of it, just over half. I do encourage you to listen to the ending of it because it's a really good TED Talk, and it really connects and touches on this week's theme of cultivating inner warmth and self-acceptance. Those are the indicators that we're developing sufficient self-love. Once we begin to feel the inner warmth and self-acceptance, that's our sign that we are headed in the right direction. The more that we are able to feel that, that's how that we know we're moving towards self-love. Not just inhabiting it, but also being able to express it and to live from self-love. And so without further ado, here's the TED Talk.
Could you look yourself in the mirror and say, I love you, me? A few years ago, I couldn't. Saying those 4 words would have been really difficult. I did not love myself, and I didn't see what could possibly be lovable about me. Well, I've come a long way since then, and now not only will I say those words, I will sing them for you as well. Today, I'll share a bit of my healing journey from self-hatred to real self-love. It's the true story of how music saved my life and set me free from several diagnoses, including depression. I was born in Nevada, and when I was 3 years old, my parents got divorced. My mother then moved our family to Denver, Colorado, so she could finish medical school. When she got into private practice, I was shuffled between school and the babysitter and my older sister. When it was the weekends, I begged my mom to go to the hospital with her. So as she did her patient rounds, I would hang out in the gift shop. And I was always very quiet and well-behaved, mainly because at home, my mother repeated often, children are to be seen, not heard, just as she was told when she grew up. Now, the conversations on the phone with my father were mainly about how I was doing in school. He came from the generation that believed that with an education, you could get a good job, a pension, and a secure future. So when he found out that I was performing in a music recital or a school play, I often heard the tone of disapproval in his voice. He told me I needed to focus on my grades. Successful musicians and actors are just 1 in a million. My dad grew up in Tennessee. It's one of the United States known for country music, and many people travel there to look for fame, but very few people find it. Now, my dad is actually an excellent guitar and banjo player, and he excels in photography. So it's really not surprising that music and creative arts are natural passions for me. But he always discouraged me from pursuing them as a career because he had seen too many people try and fail at that. So I worked really hard at school so that I could keep my dad's approval, so that I could keep performing in theater, band, and choir. It was through music and theater that I could move and release the emotions that were bottled up inside of me. And it was on stage that I was finally told it was good to be seen and totally acceptable to speak up and sing out loud. So, when I got to university, I performed in community theater, I discovered video production, and I became the general manager of our campus TV station as a pre-med student. And this is when my father told me that I was a dilettante, just like him. Enter diagnosis number 1. Dilettante, a person who cultivates an area of interest, such as the arts, without serious commitment or knowledge. Synonyms include dabbler, tinkerer, trifler, amateur, non-professional, non-specialist. Pretty negative, right? Isn't it amazing how quickly we slap a label on anything that's outside of the box instead of encouraging the individuality within each of us? Once again, my father urged me to focus on my studies so that I could get accepted to medical school. And I felt the need to hide and downplay my true passions and interests. I didn't want to be seen as not serious. So from childhood to early adulthood, I became a chameleon. I did everything I could to look, sound, and behave in serious, acceptable ways. And over time, I noticed this growing sense of unease. I never quite felt comfortable in my own skin. I didn't feel like I was good enough. And I was terrified that someone would find out I wasn't smart enough. And sadly, I never got to enjoy the fruits of my hard labor. Getting all A's on a report card or a standing ovation didn't make me feel good about myself or proud. In fact, my self-worth never increased based on the things I did. But I still tried really hard to be perfect. And I remember feeling intense shame anytime that urge for creative expression bubbled up inside of me. It was not a fun way to live, and I was pretty sad and alone. When I got to medical school, I studied day and night. And for the first time, I had no time for all of the artistic things on the side. And that underlying sadness, well, that turned into really dark moods. So I went to Student Health Services to get some help. And that's when I received diagnosis number 2, depression. The doctor gave me 3 prescriptions, 1 for antidepressants, 1 for sessions with a therapist. Now, the therapy sessions were actually helpful. It felt good to finally confess how stressed and sad I was. The antidepressants, though, they just made me feel numb. Instead of low moods, I felt flat. But the 3rd prescription she gave me was the most effective and the most surprising. When I applied for medical school, this same doctor interviewed me, and I was surprised that she remembered that I played classical piano. She asked, "How often do you play piano now?" I looked at her like she was crazy. Who has time for playing music when you're surrounded by brainiacs who seem to know everything already when I have to study constantly? She suggested that I play piano for 30 minutes a day. And when I looked at her like she was off her rocker, she said 30 minutes a week. To this doctor, it seemed completely logical and totally acceptable that I should engage in an activity that brought me joy. And expressing myself through music always felt good, yet I denied myself that pleasure when I needed it most. My mind had been so programmed to deny, shut down, and belittle myself for my creativity that I was really suffering. Well, I took her advice, and I started playing piano more. And I'm convinced that this is what got me through med school alive. Now, I wish I could say I graduated with total self-acceptance, but no. When I got to my medical residency, I basically threw myself into the 100-hour work week with gusto. And I also studied acupuncture and Chinese medicine. And once again, I heard a judgmental voice telling me I needed to seriously focus on just one thing. But it wasn't my dad. Apparently, the people around me were confused by my integrative and holistic approach to wellness and my multiple interests. I heard things like, "Are you a doctor, actor, singer, acupuncturist?" The assumption was that I was unfocused, not serious. But why do we have to be only one thing? And why can't we celebrate all parts of us? Have you ever felt a little bad because you have a lot of ideas or interests? Yeah, thank you. Lots of things you want to explore. Well, these people told me they thought I had ADD. Welcome to diagnosis number 3. Once again, I felt the need to suppress my authentic self even more. I became an aggressive go-getter, intensely driven to build up my credibility through advanced degrees, licenses, and certifications. The joke in the family was, Andrea has more degrees than a thermometer. And all of the shiny wealth that I earned did not spark any joy. Instead, I had these constant thoughts that it was never enough and nothing really mattered. And I woke up every day feeling totally empty. I dreaded leaving the house, and it was only a sense of obligation that motivated me to put on that happy face and rally for the daily grind. I was a functional depressive. Just 3 years into my professional career, I had published my first book, appeared on the Oprah Winfrey Show multiple times, and I regularly stood on stages flashing a smile from ear to ear. But that smile did not reflect true happiness. On the inside, I was miserable. But nobody knew it, because I hid that too. The price for driving myself so intensely and constantly searching for approval had given way to feelings of self-hatred and burnout. And like a dark, heavy cloak, depression became a constant presence in my life. It was as burdensome and constricting as a tight coat soaked through from the rain and dripping in black, sticky tar. And this cloak of depression had an oversized hood that would droop over my eyes, blocking my vision. It compressed my ears, muffling the rich sounds of life and the music of my heart. And worst of all, it allowed sad thoughts of hopelessness to sink into my mind. And then I hit rock bottom. In 2005, I asked God to take my life. Now, I was not suicidal. I had no plan to harm myself, but I did not want the life I was living to go on anymore. While I was on vacation in the Mediterranean, I was invited to sing at this glorious hot spot in Saint-Tropez. And as I'm on the mic singing my jazzy soul tune, I watched as a sea of people moved and swayed, and I felt free. I felt as though I were being received as me. And when I got to my hotel in Cannes, I woke up the next morning thinking, what just happened? There, I experienced pure bliss and total flow. And in 2 days, I'd have to go back into that dark, depressing box of conformity. And that's when I lost it. I cried out to God saying, take it. Take my body, my talents, my business. I don't know what I'm doing with it. And as I cried, I was shaking. I flung myself onto the bed, and I felt my body melt into the bed. There was this intensely bright light, and I felt myself being drawn into the light. And as I left my body, I thought God was answering my prayer. And that's when I saw several visions that completely changed my entire perspective on life.
welcome back. This talk is not a bubble bath of self-love. Instead, it's about radical self-respect after fragmentation. Dr. Pennington shares how external success, career recognition, and achievement can coexist with deep internal disconnection. Her message is clear. You can look accomplished on paper and still be abandoning yourself internally. A central theme is reclaiming the parts of yourself you rejected to survive. She speaks about identity masks, roles we play to be liked, admired, or safe. The turning point in her journey wasn't achieving more. It was integrating the wounded, hidden, and disowned parts of herself. That's real self-love. Not polishing the persona, but embracing the shadow. She also reframes love as something that begins internally, not something we chase externally to fill a deficit. When you cultivate inner warmth through awareness, forgiveness, and honest self-inquiry, you stop outsourcing your value. Self-compassion becomes less about positive affirmations and more about telling yourself the truth without cruelty. What makes this talk powerful for this week's theme is the emphasis on embodiment. Self-love isn't intellectual, it's felt. It shows up in how you speak to yourself after a mistake, how you set boundaries, and in whether you keep performing or finally pause to ask, what do I need? As we go into the journal prompts for today, number 1, where in your life are you performing a version of yourself instead of living as your full self? Number 2, what part of you have you judged, hidden, or rejected that needs compassion instead of correction? And number 3, if self-love meant integration rather than improvement, what would you stop trying to fix? That's it for today. As always, thanks for being here. Take care of yourself and please do be well. Welcome back. Now, this is the third and final section of the daily podcast. This is your silent meditation. Please find a place where you can be comfortable and undisturbed, where you can relax and spend some time with yourself for this 10-minute silent meditation. You can choose to be sitting, standing, lying down, or in whatever position makes you comfortable today. Just take some time to listen to yourself. Next, be sure that you are taking some time to be with your breath to connect with your body. Don't be disturbed or overwhelmed by your thoughts. Simply allow them to pass. Just observe them. Do not engage with your thoughts. Only be mindful of them passing as if they are drifting down a river. Use this time to connect with yourself. Whatever time of day you are listening to this, Namaste.